أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So as you know, we're trying to, we've been doing Hadith number 19 from Nawawi's collection of 40 Hadith. And soon, inshallah, we'll mark half of the works of Nawawi's 40 Hadith, because we'll get on to Hadith number 20, inshallah. So I'm just going to read the Hadith one more time, and then I'm just going to recap briefly what we did last time. So I'm just going to read the English, inshallah. On the authority of Abu Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with both of them, who said, one day I was riding behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to me, O young man, I shall teach you some words of advice. Be mindful of Allah, and Allah will protect you. Be mindful of Allah, and you will find Him in front of you. If you ask, ask of Allah. If you seek help in Allah. Know that if the nation were to gather together to benefit you with something, they would not benefit you with anything except that which Allah has already recorded for you. If they gather to harm you by something, they would not be able to harm you by anything except what Allah has already recorded against you. The pens have been lifted and the pages have dried. And this is recorded by Tirmidhi, who said it is a Hasan Sahih Hadith. In a narration other than that of At-Tirmidhi, it states, be mindful of Allah, and you will find Him in front of you. Become beloved to Allah during times of prosperity. He will know you in times of adversity. Know that what has passed you by was never to befall you, and know that what has befallen you was never to have passed you by. And know that victory accompanies perseverance, relief accompanies affliction, and ease accompanies hardship. What we will cover today is the last part of this second narration. The reason we're not doing this narration in too much detail is because, as I mentioned, there is some controversy over its authenticity. But there are some interesting points here which we have not touched on, so I will just touch on those. It's just this last part that I read. Victory accompanies perseverance, relief accompanies affliction, and ease accompanies hardship. So that's what I will, inshallah, try and focus on today. But previously, I spoke to you about a very important concept. Does anybody remember what that was? What did we talk about in the last hadith lesson?
Qadr?
Yes, very good. We discussed qadr and qada, and that's a very important thing that I need you to a concept that that we need to understand, because a lot of things you could say they fall in the basket of qada and qadr, and so to grasp that, it makes the understanding of a lot of other things clearer. However, it's not something that we should question too much or we should delve into too much, as long as we understand that it is something that is within Allah's, that is from Allah's knowledge, it is from Allah's wisdom, and it is for us to accept it. Okay, before I carry on, just quickly again. The Prophet ﷺ started by saying, "O young man, I shall teach you some words of advice." So if somebody can just briefly tell me, just to recap quickly, what are the lessons, some of the lessons we got from those words?
Scared of Allah. Taqwa.
Okay, so what I'm focusing on is when the Prophet ﷺ said, "O young man, I shall teach you some words of advice." So the first thing we picked up from that is that the Prophet ﷺ, he paid attention to the youth, and we should do that as well. It's important to focus on their tarbiyah. The second thing we pick up from this sentence is that he said, I will tell you some words of advice. So he's already put the child's heart at ease. How old was Ibn Abbas when he's being spoken to? Yes, that's right. He's very young. He's between 10 and 13. So he's 11, 12, something like that. So he's very young. And so the Prophet ﷺ, when he says that I'm going to say a few words to you, it makes him a bit relaxed that this is not going to be something lengthy, or it's not going to be a long lecture. It's not going to be heavy or difficult. It's something simple that I can understand and I can grasp. Then he says, be mindful of Allah and Allah will protect you. What does that mean? Yes, that's right. To be conscious of Allah's boundaries, whatever Allah has permitted, whatever Allah has forbidden, to be conscientious of those things, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect us and take care of us if we take care of Allah's boundaries. So basically obey Allah and keep away from disobeying Him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look after you or protect you. Be mindful of Allah and you will find Him in front of you. So again, it is a very similar concept. What do you understand by finding Allah in front of you?
By His knowledge.
Yes, so Allah is aware of everything you are doing, and finding Allah in front of you is basically, in other words, like a close protection from Allah or a close guidance from Allah. So you will hear what is pleasing to Allah, you will do what is pleasing to Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will it's basically like a closeness from Allah, by His knowledge, of course, and also by His protection and care for you. Okay? And this is like a special care and protection that Allah gives to those who are mindful of Him, who are constantly connected to Him, who constantly remember Him. Yeah? Is that concept clear? Okay. Then the next thing is, he said, if you ask of Allah. So what did we say about that?
If we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only, then He will protect our worldly matters and also protect our deen.
Yeah, okay. So basically, we said that asking is of a few types. The Prophet ﷺ, he discouraged us from asking people, but rather we should ask Allah. But we said that there are two types of things that we can ask for. So we might need, for example, if I want guidance, or I want, there is something in my life that I'm struggling with, my needs, my du'as, these things should be directed only to Allah. But then there are some dunya things we need, right? Like, for example, I might need change for 100 riyals. So I might go to someone and say, do you have change for this money? I'm asking, but this is a need, like a dunya need that a human being will fulfill. However, remember we said that even when we're doing something like that, we should primarily ask Allah to put someone in our path, or to bring someone to us who can help us fulfill our dunya need. So then again, we are primarily asking Allah. And the reason we are doing this exercise, and we're trying to focus on asking Allah, whether it is for our akhirah needs or our dunya needs, is what? There is an end result that we're trying to get, and that's why we're trying to focus on just asking Allah and no one else. what is the fruit of doing something like that repeatedly? No. No. So when someone fulfills your needs, how do you feel towards them?
Gratitude.
Exactly. So our gratitude should be directed purely to Allah. Okay? Our shukr and our sense of fulfillment and the gratitude we feel from that fulfillment has to be purely for Allah. Because even when we get dunya help on a dunya level from another human being, we must realize that ultimately Allah put that person in our path to give us that assistance, right? So for example, let's say, I have a situation at home, I've had a problem, and a group of sisters gets together to send food to my house for a week, okay? So naturally I feel indebted towards them, I feel very grateful towards them, but ultimately who put those sisters in my life, or who put this in their minds to come and help me out? Allah, right? So although I'm grateful to the people around me who are helping me, assisting me, doing things for me, my ultimate gratitude is to Allah for having, brought this help to me in this time of difficulty. So is that clear? That is why it is so important to stress and to teach your children to only ask Allah, and even when they have a dunya need that needs to be fulfilled, they must primarily ask Allah. Sometimes kids are hungry, or they want a car, or they want a toy, or they want to go somewhere, or they want to do something. Always encourage them to ask Allah. If you ask Allah. And when we ingrain this concept, and it's a core part of your tarbiyah, it makes a very strong connection between the child and his Lord, between the child and his Creator. And there's nothing and no one that can come between this connection that this child develops. And if this child is in the habit of doing this from a very young age, then anytime he's faced with anything, ups and downs, he will just immediately connect with Allah, and he will immediately either thank Allah, or he will turn to Allah and ask Allah for help. So I can't stress it enough how important it is to inculcate this concept into our youth, into our children, and of course into ourselves, that whenever we ask Allah, so that our ultimate gratitude is directed to Allah. Okay? And then again, if you seek help in Allah. Does anyone remember one core concept that I explained about this particular statement? It's a statement by Ibn Rajab. I think I was asking you about the phrase where the Prophet ﷺ said the sentence, if you seek help in Allah. So there was one core concept that Ibn Rajab mentioned specifically in relation to this statement. Does anybody remember what this is referring to? So basically he said that this is in essence you could say like an explanation of the most important verse in the Quran, which is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It's similar to if you ask of Allah, but this is specifically about seeking help. If you seek help in Allah. And like I said to you last time, this is all building up towards what we're going to come to now, which is the next few statements that the Prophet ﷺ makes. So it's almost like the Prophet ﷺ has, you could say, set the scene, or he has set the core concepts, and now he's going to talk about the crux of the matter, okay, which is like the main thing, the main meat of the matter of this conversation that he's trying to convey to Abdullah bin Abbas. Then he says, the Prophet ﷺ says, and by the way, you know the verse in the Quran, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, it is said that all of Revelation, you could say, is condensed in this ayah, that you alone do we worship and you alone do we seek assistance from. So the next thing the Prophet ﷺ says is, know that if the nation were to gather together to benefit you with something, they would not benefit you with anything except that which Allah has already recorded for you. If they gather to harm you by something, they would not be able to harm you by anything except what Allah has already recorded against you. The pens have been lifted and the pages have dried. So, of course, this is referring to Qadr and Qada. I mentioned some benefits that we get from these statements, but what I needed you to understand is how this is all coming together. So the Prophet ﷺ talks about, certain things in the beginning, and then he talks about the main concept that he wants to convey to Abdullah bin Abbas. So if we understand that everything that happens to us in our life, whether it is good or bad, it is something that could not have been prevented, and the course could not have changed, because this is something that Allah has decided, and this is how it will happen. So, of course, in our life, we will have pleasant experiences and we will have unpleasant experiences. So now, if we go back to the beginning of some of the things that the Prophet ﷺ said, we can see that how the Prophet ﷺ is teaching Abdullah bin Abbas to prepare himself to receive the qadr and qada of Allah. Okay? So, how do we prepare for a difficulty that's going to come our way? Anyone? And going back to the initial statements of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so yes, when we have to understand Qadr and Qada, we have to accept it, but no, so think about what the Prophet ﷺ said to him in the beginning. Right at the beginning. He said, be mindful of Allah. Yes. Be mindful of Allah, and Allah will protect you. So when you're in a problem and when you're in difficulty, what do you need? You need Allah's protection, right? You need Allah's help. And in order to receive that help, you should have fulfilled some of those parameters, which is being conscientious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ordainments, his prohibitions, asking only of Allah, seeking help only from Allah. So if we have been doing some of these things, it's almost like we are preparing for the qadr and qada, because the qadr of Allah, or the qada, whatever is written, we understand that it's not going to, we can't dodge it, right? No matter what we do, we can't escape it. So the way to deal with it is to accept it and to be prepared for it, okay? And the way to prepare for it is to spend your life in Allah's obedience and avoiding Allah's disobedience. So that's how the whole conversation comes together. Is that concept clear enough? how this is connected, how the last part of the hadith is connected to the first part of the hadith?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Okay, this is important. That's why I need to be sure that this is clear. If there's any confusion or anything that is not clear, please do ask, and we'll try and take questions at the end. Okay. And the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions both things separately, right? He mentions if something good is going to happen, no one can take that away from you. And if something bad is going to happen, no one can prevent that. The only one who can help you in this situation to bring good to you or to take away the harm from you is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that's why your connection with Allah should be very, very strong, and it should be clear, it should be good, it should be healthy, and it should be constant. So one of the things we're encouraged to do is to remember Allah in our times of ease, so that Allah's assistance is available for us in our times of difficulty or hardship. Okay? I think this is where we stopped last time. We finished that portion of the hadith. So now I'm just going to go through some concepts in the other narration that Nawawi has mentioned, even though it is a weak narration. The second narration says, be mindful of Allah, you will find him in front of you. So this is again a similar concept to what we've covered in the original narration and the first narration. So that is covered already, and I think you understand that, what it means to be mindful of Allah and you will find him in front of you. So you will have Allah's protection, you will have Allah's help, you will have Allah's guidance, etc. Okay, become beloved to Allah during times of prosperity. He will know you in times of adversity. This is again a concept that we have already discussed, right? That be connected to Allah in your times of ease, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of you in your times of difficulty. Even at a human level, if you think about this concept, how do you feel about people who only get in touch with you when they need something from you? And how do you feel about people who always consistently keep in touch with you? They just want to know how you are. They just want to know if everything's okay. They just want to touch base. They just want to say salam. They just want to, maybe visit you or bring something nice for you. Imagine how you feel towards these two people. So you have one person who's constantly, around you, in touch with you, cares about you, asks about you. And then you have another person who only contacts you when they need something. You see how different our feelings are towards such people, right? So naturally we feel, we feel very warmly towards the person who's always around us and who always, shows that they care and they're concerned and they want to, you could say, be there for you or, keep close contact with you. So similarly, imagine those people who are consistently connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then there are those people who just call on Allah when they need something. So you can see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's dealing will be different with these two categories of people. And an extreme example, you could say, of these two categories is Yunus alayhi salam, right? When Yunus alayhi salam is in the belly of the whale and he calls out to Allah from inside the whale, and the angels, they say that this is a familiar voice, and this is a voice that we hear a lot. So obviously what that's implying is that Yunus alayhi salam was always calling on Allah. He was always busy in the ibadah of Allah, and so he is a known voice in the heavens. So when he calls, when he's in a difficult situation, they recognize this voice because they've always been hearing it. So similarly is our situation, where there's those of us who constantly call on Allah, and so you might be a voice that is familiar in the heavens, and so when you are in a problem and you call on Allah, it's almost like you are, you could say, known by the angels, or you're known in the heavens, because remember, when you remember Allah, Allah remembers you or mentions you in a better gathering. And then there's the example of Fir'aun. Okay, so Fir'aun, he calls on Allah, right? When he is drowning, the only one he calls on is Allah. He doesn't call his army, he doesn't call his soldiers, he doesn't call his people or his family or anyone. The only one he calls on is Allah. So whose assistance does Allah come to? Yunus alayhi salam or Fir'aun? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps Yunus alayhi salam come out of his difficulty, come out of this karb, this problem that he's in. And one of the reasons is because he was always calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was always connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he had not been connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't know what would have happened. And so similarly, when Fir'aun calls on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's not assisted, he's not helped, because he was never connected to Allah. So it is very important to always be connected to Allah, and always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dua to him, and always seek help and assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so he will know you in times of adversity. Become beloved to Allah during times of prosperity. He will know you in times of adversity. Know that what has passed you by was never to befall you, and know that what has befallen you was never to have passed you by. Again, this is a similar concept to what we covered, where the Prophet ﷺ said that, if they gather to bring you some harm, they can't do it without Allah's permission. If they gather to bring you benefit, they can't do it without Allah's permission. So this is similar to the second part of the hadith, where it's saying, know that what has passed you by was never to befall you, and know that what has befallen you was never to have passed you by. Basically, the qadr of Allah is not going to change, and this is what is written for you, and this is what you are going to get, and what is not written for you, you are never going to get. And this is all in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's control. So it is for us to accept it, and to be prepared to deal with it. It's almost like, for example, the weather. Okay, so we can't change when the temperature drops outside, right? And we can't change when it becomes extremely hot. But what we can do is, when it's cold, we can wear warm clothes and go out, and when it is hot, we can just try and cool ourselves down, because we can't control the weather, but we can just manage ourselves to be able to basically deal with the weather conditions. So if it rains, we'll take an umbrella with us. So similarly, you can think of qadr and qada like that. So whatever is written for you, you can't alter your qada, but what you can do is just be prepared for it. Have enough warm clothes, have enough clothes for the winter. Prepare your iman, prepare yourself. Equip yourself with the ability to be able to deal with whatever is going to come your way. And of course, the main way you equip yourself, or you prepare yourself, is by connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so then we come to the last part, which is, and know that victory accompanies perseverance, relief accompanies affliction, and ease accompanies hardship, which is what I want to talk about today. There's one thing I wanted to also ask you. I think I did mention this last time, but I'm not sure. Is Did I mention to you the two ways in which Allah knows us and the two ways in which we know Allah? Did I mention that? Can anybody remind me?
You had said the general ways and specifically.
Yes.
Two ways Allah knows His slaves.
Yeah, so what is the general way and what is the specific way?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all His creation.
Yeah.
And specifically through Allah's love and special care, a few people have been will be considered by Him.
Yeah, so basically there are two ways in which Allah knows His slaves. So one is a general level at which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all things, right? And then there is a specific level which implies Allah's love and special care for a servant. And this is, you could say, in reciprocation or in response to that servant's attention that he gives to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So there's a group of people who know Allah. So basically we know that Allah exists. That is one way of knowing Allah, just knowing or acknowledging His existence. And then there is a knowing of Allah where you want to get to know Allah and you want to be constantly connected to Him and you constantly remember Him and you constantly want to recite Quran to see what Allah has to say to you. So this is a special kind of, connection with Allah where you're just constantly focused on Allah, knowing Allah, connecting with Allah. And when you have this kind of closeness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's almost like you become known to Allah, okay? Because you could say, your life now revolves around Allah, It's like a constant thing in your life is Allah's presence. And you could say it is like the level of ihsan where, you worship Allah as if you see Him, and if you do not see Him, He sees you. So it's like constantly being conscientious of being in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you develop this state where you are constantly conscientious of Allah's presence or, of being in Allah's presence, then you develop that higher level of knowing Allah or being near to Allah or, of Allah knowing you. So, okay, if I mentioned that last time, I'll just mention that one more time because that was important. So, before I go to victory comes with perseverance, which is the first thing that I want to talk to you about, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Is it obligatory to be pleased with qada, with the decree of Allah? What do you think?
It's a pillar of Iman that we have to believe in qadar.
Mm-hmm.
To be pleased,
Okay. So I'm getting some answers in the chat box as well. So obviously I'm asking if it's obligatory to be pleased with what Allah has decreed. So yeah, that's right. It is not obligatory to be pleased with the qada of Allah, but of course it's a higher level of iman if you are. So you have two levels of accepting Allah's qadar. One is being patient with it and one is being pleased with it. Okay, so patience is at one level and then pleased is at a higher level. So you have, you will read stories about Sahaba who experienced difficulties and they were very, very, they were very content and happy. What do you think is causing that contentment and that happiness in that time of difficulty or hardship that they're experiencing? What do you think can give you this sense of pleasure while you're experiencing a hardship?
Reward.
Okay, that could be one of those things, yes. Because when you're going through a difficulty, your sins are being forgiven and you're getting ajr, you're getting reward, yes. Yes, very good. It's erasing your sins. Yep.
Raises one's ranks.
Yes, very good. It's raising your ranks in Jannah because you're experiencing a hardship. There's a core thing that I'm looking for, but all of these things are correct.
Acceptance of qadr.
Yes. So what is connected to accepting the qadr? I mean, naturally, when a person is going through a difficulty, he's accepted it. This is my fate and I have to go through this, right? So what is, that is, you're being patient with it because you've accepted it. But how does it take you to the next level of being pleased to be in this situation? Yes, very good. Excellent. So somebody's just answered it. It is, having this understanding and trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in charge of your affairs. Allah has, decreed for this situation, for you to be in this situation. And Allah knows better than anyone else why, it is better for you to be in this situation. So it's really got to do, again, with your connection and your knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His wisdom and His, His knowledge of the unseen, that, you have so much trust, and you have, in your heart, you understand the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His magnificence, His kindness, His ultimate mercy. And with all of that, if you are in this situation, there must be a purpose behind it. There must be a great benefit that will come to you through this. And that kind of understanding, it actually almost makes you pleased that Allah has chosen this situation for you, so there must be some benefit in it for you. And it's almost like being happy that this wasn't my choice, this was Allah's choice, for me, and this is where my happiness lies, in whatever Allah has chosen for me. So is that clear? Yeah, that concept. And the Prophet ﷺ, he used to make this dua. It's a part of a very lengthy dua, and even in the masajid here during witr they will read this, but I'm just going to give you that part of the dua where the Prophet ﷺ would say, As'aluka Allahumma ar-rida ba'd al-qada, which means, oh Allah, I ask of you for pleasure after what has been decreed. Because whatever is written for you, you are going to go through it, right? You can't escape it. So by being pleased with Allah's decree, you're just getting some extra bonus, and it also just puts your heart at ease. I mean, when you're patient, there is, you've accepted it, but there might be a lot of stress, anxiety, etc. But when you're pleased with the decree, you can imagine, that how light and relieved and happy you feel inside, because you have come to that understanding of acceptance and being happy and content with whatever Allah has written for you. It might be something unpleasant, but that there is some hikmah, there is some purpose behind it. And like I said, that physical pain might actually leave you due to this pleasure that you feel in being connected to Allah, and in just thinking that Allah is testing me and there's a reason for it, and knowing a lot of other things, such as that Allah tests those whom He loves, for example. So you hope that you're amongst those whom Allah loves, knowing that going through this difficulty, it is causing you to turn more often to Allah. So when you're going through an easy time, you don't turn to Allah as much as you turn in your times of adversity, right? So that adversity is actually a blessing, because it's causing you to connect with Allah more than you have in the past. I think I gave you some of the benefits of adversity last time, correct? Or at least I thought I did. Yeah, I think I did, right? And those are some of the points that some of you mentioned as well. Forgiveness of sins, increasing in your reward. So when you focus on all these things, it does help you to almost feel like you're benefiting from this hardship. You almost feel like you're benefiting from this adversity. It's not something negative. You start looking at it as something positive. Okay. Okay. So now I will come on to this point that I was going to discuss with you, which is victory comes with perseverance. Okay, so perseverance is it's basically carrying on with patience. Okay, carrying on doing something with patience. Now when he says victory comes with perseverance, there's many times in your life where you go through ups and you go through downs, and it's almost like you keep falling, you keep slipping, you keep falling, you keep, you could say messing up, or you keep losing, failing. Okay. So there are two things that a person can do when he fails or he falls. One is that he remains in that position and he just gives up. And he says, I'm not going to get up again because I keep falling, so I'm just going to stay fallen. And the other option is that he gets up and he just carries on. And he gets up and he keeps trying, and he gets up and he keeps going. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ is encouraging us to do. That keep going, keep trying, don't give up, don't quit. Okay? And the individual who gets up one more time and tries one more time and puts an effort one more time is the one who will eventually be victorious, is the one who will eventually reach success. Because success doesn't necessarily come in the first try, right? So you might have to try a few times. So for example, let's say you've memorized a long surah in the Quran, from the Quran, and you've tried to revise it because you keep forgetting it, and you've tried a few times, and you keep starting and stopping, or you do some of it and then something happens, and then you're just not able to get from the beginning to the end of this surah and to finish revising it, for example. So one option would be that you just give up and you say, you know what, I've tried so many times, it's just not happening, so I'm just going to stop. And then the other option is that you just keep going, and you keep going at it, and you keep trying to find one way or another way. You keep asking around, reading about it, speaking to people who've done this before, join a center, make a group, find a friend. I mean, you are trying everything possible to try and make that happen. So the person who will ultimately get it done and be victorious is the one who obviously kept trying and kept going, not the one who said, you know what, I can't do this, I'm just going to leave it. Right? They will never achieve anything. And I think a lot of the times our approach, or the way we deal with certain situations, it revolves around the importance that we give to that situation. So for example, if something is important to you, you will be determined and you will keep going because this is so important to you. It is crucial that you want to get this thing done. Whereas if something, is not that important to you and you think, okay, if I do it, I do it. If I don't, So then it's quite likely that if you fail a few times, you probably just give up, right? So, look at the things in your life that you have kept going and kept trying to do, and look at the things that you've given up on, and you will see that, where your priorities lie, and you will see what has been important to you and what has not really been of much consequence to you. Anyway, so the point being that if you keep sitting down, you are bound to fail. But if you get up and keep trying, then inshallah you will be victorious eventually. And even, and if you look at the expeditions and the battles that, the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba fought, like for example, when we're doing Battle of Badr, right? It's, on the outset, if you look at things from a logistical point of view or a logical point of view, you would say that, these people are just walking into their death. Why would they do that? It doesn't make sense. I mean, it's the possibility of them failing is so much greater than them winning. So, for example, in the Battle of Badr, right, you have 300 and something men on the side of the Muslims, and on the side of the Quraysh, you have like over 1,000, and it makes you think, that they have no chance of winning, right? But the Prophet ﷺ, he always encouraged the Sahaba to keep going, to keep trying, and to never give up, And ultimately, you can see how victory came to them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help comes to them. And similarly, when you are in a situation where you feel that I'm heading for failure, this is never going to happen, this is impossible. Like, for example, somebody who is, let's say, in their 40s or 50s, and they say, oh, I want to memorize the whole Quran, but I'm never going to be able to do it. This is like an impossible task. If you start with that kind of thinking from the offset, then it's unlikely you will achieve anything. Whereas if you have determination, motivation, and you say, I'm going to try, I'm going to keep trying, then inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will assist you if you are sincere, and you will get to your, you will achieve your goal. Okay. So the second thing that I wanted to talk about is relief accompanies difficulties, or you could say ease comes after calamity. Okay. And actually, before I talk about that, I just want to briefly touch on patience, because we're talking about patience, because the Prophet ﷺ said in this narration, victory comes with perseverance. So basically, you have to be patient and keep going and keep trying, and then eventually you'll be successful. So does anybody know how many types of patience there are, or how many types of sabr there are? And can anybody tell me what each of them entails? And if you don't know, that's fine. I will teach it to you today. So there's basically 3 types of sabr. Okay? And the first type is being patient in obeying Allah and performing good deeds. The second type is in abstinence, or keeping away from sins and disobediences to Allah. And the third type is being patient with whatever Allah has decreed for you, okay, with whatever befalls you. These are the 3 main types of sabr. Some of the scholars have added a 4th type, and they said that is patience with respect to how you are treated by others. So when you are dealing with other people and they do not treat you in a proper manner, it requires patience from you. And you should not respond in a way that leads to greater harm. So they said that this is the fourth type of patience. And, especially when it comes to, for example, times of da'wah, when you are trying to convey the message of Islam, or you're trying to advise someone to do something good, or advise someone to stop doing something bad, then these are the times where patience is required. So they've given that as a fourth category. But the first three categories, what do you understand when I say that you should be patient in obeying Allah? Anybody?
Istiqamah.
Yes, very good. So, if you think about it, right, to pray 5 times a day, every day, month after month, year after year, it requires patience, it requires perseverance, right? It's not a small thing. To fast Ramadan after Ramadan, to pray tahajjud night after night, to recite Quran daily, juz after juz, to give sadaqah, to do all these things, to go for umrah, to go for hajj. These things, they require sabr, they require patience. You experience a lot of things during these ibadat which require a lot of sabr from you. So obeying Allah and being consistent in obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it requires patience and perseverance. How do you require patience in abstaining from disobeying Allah? Staying away from sins. This patience of staying away from sins is really the kind of patience that distinguishes a believer or a pious person from an unpious person, or a righteous person, someone who has taqwa from someone who lacks taqwa. You see, to do obligatory duties is pretty straightforward, in the sense that to do salah, to fast, to tell the truth, to not cheat, to be kind to your parents, etc., etc. These are all good deeds that you're obliged to do, and a lot of people are able to do them. But it is only a pious person, a person who has taqwa, who will try and keep away from evil deeds, and that does require more patience than the patience in doing good deeds. Because when it comes to leaving sins, that temptation is so strong that to fight that off, you require a lot of sabr, you require a lot of patience. Okay? And as the Prophet ﷺ said, right, that Jannah is surrounded by difficulties and hardships, and hellfire is surrounded by temptations, right? And so it's so easy to give in to those temptations. So you require a lot of sabr to try and restrain yourself, okay? And the third type of patience, in being patient with Allah's qada and qadr, like I said to you, that if you have patience and you have contentment with whatever Allah has written for you, it almost just lightens the burden. It just makes that time that you're going through, or that whatever situation you are in, it just makes it so much easier to pass through it. So now we come to the point that relief accompanies difficulties, or that there is ease that comes after calamity. When you experience pain, that is when you will understand what pleasure is, right? It's a lot of the times it's when you know, to understand one concept, you have to have understood the opposite of that concept. So you will not experience pleasure unless you have experienced pain. You will not understand ease and enjoy ease unless you have experienced difficulty, correct? So, and it's not that, you know, the scholars have explained that pleasure doesn't come after the pain, it comes at the same time. So at the time you're going through the hardship and the difficulty, you have the ease happening at that same time as well. And again, the ease, like we said earlier, when, you know, I was asking the question about, you know, what are the benefits of hardships? When you're going through pain, you're thinking that maybe through this, inshallah, I will enter paradise. You know, maybe Allah will forgive my sins. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise my status in Jannah. Maybe my good deeds are going to be multiplied because I'm being patient through this. I will get to see Allah. I will get to meet Allah. So this is all the pleasure that you are experiencing while you are going through the pain. And that is what is actually helping you get through this pain, right? And again, you know, so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with a hardship, He will always give us ease at the same time, okay? And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran as well, right? Inna ma'al usri yusra, not ba'dal usri yusra. It's not after, it's ma'al usri yusra. With difficulty, there is ease. And when things in the Sharia get difficult, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us rukhsas. He gives us concessions, right? So for example, you're in a place there's not enough water, you can just make tayammum. You are sick, you can't get up and pray, you can pray lying down, you can pray sitting down. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to give us ease. He's giving us ease even in Sharia, right? Even in the things that we're obliged to do, if they become, you know, slightly tough for us, Allah is making it easy for us. So this is something that Allah, out of His kindness, you know, He keeps blessing us with, which is ease in times of hardship and also in terms of our obligations. Okay, so with that, I think we have, inshallah, completed this hadith. And I just want to summarize the last few points and then close, inshallah. Okay. So just some points of benefit. So in summary, we learn the importance of giving tarbiyah and training our youth and paying attention to our youth, because this whole hadith is basically, you could say, like, you know, a means of tarbiyah that the Prophet ﷺ is doing for Abdullah ibn Abbas. So, you know, this is something that we learn from this hadith, that it is important that we pay attention to the youth, and these are some core concepts that we must teach our children. And of course, we need to understand them ourselves first so that we can teach our children. The second thing is the importance of using your time. So they're on a journey, and rather than just waste your time or while your time away, the Prophet ﷺ uses this time to teach and to speak to Abdullah ibn Abbas and give him some very important life lessons. So don't waste any time. You know, any time you get with your kids, for example, you're in the car, you're ironing, you're cooking, they're standing around you, always use that time to speak to them about something good, something beneficial, something useful. Time is precious, and you know, we need to try and maximize it and use it as efficiently as possible. The next thing we learn from this hadith is speaking skills. So when you speak to a child, or you speak to any individual, even if it's an adult, an elderly person, a young person, a friend, a neighbor, a relative, speak to people at their level, and try to be concise. So don't make your conversation too long, or anything that you're about to teach, don't make it too heavy or too complicated. Try and keep it simple and speak at their level, so that they're able to grasp it, benefit from it, and they can actually learn it and do something with that knowledge. The next thing that we learn from here, which is point number 4, is that if you look after the limits and the boundaries set by Allah, Allah will protect you and Allah will take care of you. So when you are faced with hardships, you need to check your deeds. You need to make istighfar. You need to think about your sins. Because as long as you are taking care of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of you. However, that is not to say that righteous people do not get tested. So there are people who are, the harshest tests have been for the most righteous people. But we need to think about both things. So when you're going through a test, it could be the result of sins, and it could be just something that you're experiencing because your iman is strong and it is high, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is raising your darajat in the akhirah. So if you are negligent, the test might be a calamity, the calamity might be a punishment. And if you are conscientious of Allah's boundaries, then even though you are going through a test, Allah will protect you, He will look after you, and He will smoothly take you out of this difficulty. Okay? So if you look after the boundaries set by Allah, even if you go through a hardship, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will keep you on the straight path, and your ultimate destination, inshallah, will be Jannah. So it's important to make sure that you are taking care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ahkam. Number 5, when you ask Allah alone. People cannot fulfill your requests. Number 1, they don't enjoy being asked, and number 2, they don't have the capability to fulfill your needs and your requests. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never turn you away. He will never refuse you. He's always there for you. So when you ask the one who owns the treasures of the heavens and the earth. Ask the one who is capable, who is ala kulli shayin qadir. It is foolish of us to leave Allah and to run around and ask other people and try other means. The first thing we should do, every time we are faced with any need, the first thing we need to do is ask Allah, whether it's a dunya need or an akhirah need. The first thing you should do is turn to Allah and ask Him. Okay? Because He is the one who can truly help you, right? Okay. Imagine you are in a situation where you need, for example, let's say, for example, you have a skin rash or a skin condition, and someone tells you that this is the only thing that's going to help you, this cream or this ointment. And you say, okay, I don't want to look at this ointment or this cream. I'm going to try and drink these juices, they're going to help me, or I'm going to go and swim in that water, and that's going to take care of my skin condition. And you keep trying like X, Y, Z, you keep trying all these other things. And then eventually you think, okay, you know what, let me try this ointment. And then you try it, and then the skin, the condition gets relieved. So you see, you had a solution, and it was clear, it was simple, it was right there. But you said, no, I want to try all these other things. This is exactly what we do when it comes to our relationship with Allah. We have a problem, and instead of going directly to Allah, we try all these other things. And then when we fail, we think, okay, let me make dua, let me ask Allah. But this is the first thing that we should do, is ask Allah. Number 6, if we want to benefit someone, we can't do it without Allah's permission. And if we want to harm someone, we can't do it without the permission of Allah. And we need to understand that for ourselves as well as for other people. That everything that happens is from qadr. You can't change it. You have to accept it, and you have to be prepared for it. And to be prepared for it, you have to have a good, strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and, work on your iman and strengthen your iman. Okay, and number 7, the will of Allah always takes precedence. Basically, if Allah didn't will something, it wouldn't have happened. So when something does happen, you have this consolation that this has only happened with Allah's permission and Allah's will, and there must be some purpose and wisdom behind it. So for example, when COVID has hit, right, and there are people dying left, right, and center, and people have had so many problems and issues, marriages have broken down, children's education has been affected, and the list is like endless of all the things that have happened as a result of COVID. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed. This is something that was written 50,000 years before the creation of the heavens and the earth. It was written that this was going to happen. And this is happening because of a purpose, because of a hikmah, because of some wisdom. It is not just something random. It's not a mistake. It's not a mutation. It's something that is happening because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed for this to happen, and there is some reason behind it. There is a hikmah behind it. So when we accept that and we understand that, then it becomes so much easier to get through things like this, to get through situations like this, because you understand that there is a reason this is happening, and there must be some benefit that will ultimately come out of this. Number 8, teach children from a very young age about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about the blessings of dua, the importance of dua, the significance of asking Allah before you ask anyone else, seeking help from Allah. When you're in a problem, when you're stuck, ask Allah. Even, when they're, for example, teach them when you're doing an exam or a quiz or a test and you're stuck, teach them to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you. Teach them to make istighfar. Every time there's a problem, make istighfar, so that they make a connection between sins and calamities. They make a connection between istighfar and ease. They make a connection between, when there's any situation I'm in, Allah is with me, and I'm constantly connected with Allah. I'm constantly thinking about Allah. I speak to Allah, I ask Allah whenever I'm in any situation. This is so important. If you haven't taken anything else from this entire time that we have covered this hadith, if you can take this one concept, it really develops the character of that child or of that youth that you are trying to teach these concepts to. And it is a life-changing thing for them. Imagine going through life without being connected to Allah, and another child going through life being constantly connected to Allah, that there is nothing else that is on his mind except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and asking Allah and seeking help from Allah, and depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the main concepts and ideas that I wanted to convey to you. And of course, build your iman in your times of ease, so that you're ready for the times of difficulty. You can't start when the calamity hits. You need to have started, from the beginning so that you're ready for anything. With that, inshallah, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, we come to the end of this very important and lengthy hadith. Inshallah, next week we will do Badr, and then the next time when we start hadith again, we will be on hadith number 20, inshallah. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليه. If there's any questions, you can ask, and if not, then Jazakallahu Khair for attending. I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this a means of barakah and rahmah for us, and a means of maghfirah for us. And I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us and forgives us our sins. And inshallah, I hope to see you all again next week. So if there's any questions, I'm just going to scroll up this chat and see. Okay. So if there are no questions, I will end the meeting. But if you have anything that you'd like to ask, if there's anything that was not clear, please feel free to ask. Barakallahu feekum. Okay, inshallah. So I think, I hope that all these concepts are clear to all of you, since you have no questions, inshallah. And inshallah, I will see you all next week. So barakallahu feekum, and wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.